All right, so we want to do a mock draft here of the Seattle Seahawks, and we're going to use the mock draft simulator like we always do here with PFF. Thanks for our friends at PFF for allowing us to do this. So we're going to do the first 3 rounds, and that's 5 picks for the Seahawks. So I think that'll give a pretty good indication of who they get. So we'll go ahead and start this. And what I'd like to ask you here, Mookie, is just your thoughts on who you would take at these picks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's start the draft.
Let's go.
What do we got? We've got Will Anderson going first overall, Bryce Young, Jalen Carter, Will Levis to the
That'd
Colts.
be crazy if Stroud gets to 5.
This is interesting. All right, so Seattle is up with C.J. Stroud on the board. Tyree Wilson's there. Who are you taking here, Mookie?
Yeah, with Tyree Wilson, I think that's who Seattle would take. Stroud, I'm lukewarm on. He impressed me way beyond any other game he ever played at Ohio State when they lost to Georgia. That game was not on him. The kicker had one of the worst attempts at a game-winning field goal
Ever.
Oh,
but,
yes.
That ball is still traveling somewhere, anywhere near the goalpost. But Devon Witherspoon, I'm a fan of, but again, Seattle's not going to take a corner early. So I think Tyree Wilson would be the most likely choice for the Seahawks in this situation.
It's a good
All right.
pick. Goes
Good
back
pick.
to
We're going to go ahead and take
working on the
Tyree.
lines.
Yep, and we skim through the rest, and we're on to pick 20. Oh, okay. We've got Quentin Johnston. Now, you didn't mention him earlier in your talk of the receivers. What do you think about him? And Zay Flowers is also there. You mentioned him. A little bit smaller, right? Johnston's more of like the bigger, almost like DK Metcalf type of receiver who you already have. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, with Quentin Johnston, I am not terribly high on him just because I am skeptical. Daniel Jeremiah had brought this up on Twitter as well. The hit rate on Big 12 receivers early in drafts has not been impressive over the years. And I think Quentin Johnston falls in that category, especially the issue with body catching and drop passes. And that would be really a difficult sell for me as far as being a first-round option. Whereas Jordan Addison, I think, can run just about any route. I assume Smith-Njigba is off the board as a result of because I see Addison went to Detroit. Oh, man, do they need another receiver? Goodness. And Smith-Njigba went to Pittsburgh. Okay, so Bijan Robinson went to Washington. That would be fun. It would be Robinson squared. A 2B Robinson.
Yeah,
that's right.
Everyone would draft the wrong one in fantasy drafts.
Yeah.
Might I add also that both tight ends here of significance are available. You got Kincaid as well as Michael Mayer.
Yes, baby Gronk. So if you could scroll back up, I see Zay Flowers is available. You got Kalijah Kancey. So you got your interior defensive lineman. And it would make sense to me for Seattle to try and double up there. But I also believe that they do want to beef up that offense. And even though the offense was good overall throughout the season, it faltered too many times in late game situations. And I think it wasn't Geno necessarily. Sometimes it was on him, but it was also the overall roster composition. So I like Zay Flowers. I think he can be an absolute star in this league. I believe Seattle might go the Flowers direction. I know Quentin Johnston is the more physically imposing receiver by far, and Flowers is on the smaller side. And they just drafted D. Eskridge a couple years ago, and that didn't work out. But Flowers being not from an FCS school, I think will have an impact. Well, sorry, Eskridge was a MAC, but still, that's not exactly top flight competition you're playing in that conference. But Zay Flowers, I really like his talent, and I think they might go Flowers just to get a wide receiver on the board. And keep in mind, it is the Seahawks, and if they pick 20, if they don't trade down, which they are known to do, they have got a deep history of when they pick in the 20s, choosing someone who you go, I had a second or third round grade on this person. Who the heck is
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So now you're back up again here, second round, pick 37. What are you thinking here
edges.
possibly? You got some, edges, Andre Carter, Nolan Smith with Georgia, of course. Looking to see what other tight ends might be available. We've got Steve Avila, a guard out of TCU.
Yeah.
Do you want to bolster the offensive line? You want to go defensive line here, like what Dan was mentioning earlier? What do you think here, Mookie?
I think they might go, and this is very dependent on their current linebacker situation. They might go with Henley from Washington State. because he's been one of the standouts in terms of just the interest. I think he was at the Senior Bowl, and Seattle loves the Senior Bowl. I mean, they chose even 4 picks from last year out of the Senior Bowl. They are one of those teams that they see draft stock rise from that particular roster, and they want to make a selection. And Henley, it would be an important pick, if only because Jordan Brooks tore his ACL in January against the Jets. He's out for the year, obviously, from last season. This season, don't know if he's going to make it back for September. So when you get injured that late into the year, calls into question, is he going to be able to make the start of this season? He might end up starting the year on the PUP list. And then Cody Barton, the other off-ball linebacker, he is a free agent. And his career here in Seattle has been mixed, to say the least. So I think they might, as much as fans would love to see them reunite with Bobby Wagner, I think they're going to go with Deion Henley. And I certainly like his game a lot. So they're going to go local. They haven't been afraid to do that. They've actually been a little more willing to pick Washington State guys than Washington.
There you go. And I like the local pick. I was also looking for the center that you mentioned, John Michael Schmitz, who is available here. I don't know if that might be someone that you might target a little bit later, but Henley's a good pick.
Be there at 51, honestly, if they want to go center.
Could be. So, all right, want to go with Henley?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we will do that, and we move on to pick 51. Let's see if our guy is there.
He's not.
He's not.
He went to Pittsburgh.
Oh, he went to the Steelers just before you. Oh,
and so did Siaki Ika, who would have been another target with Baylor. Darn, that makes it a little more difficult.
See. Yep, yeah, because you lose out on him. Well, Andre Carter's still there.
Yes, and
he was there the earlier round.
Steve Avila from TCU. So he could be an intriguing option. Just have another guard in terms of promising talents, because, again, Haynes is only on a 1-year deal. So you want somebody else there to at least be depth. And Damian Lewis is at the end of his contract. So guard and center are both pretty important positions for the Seahawks at the moment. So as much as I would like to see them look again at the on the defensive line, particularly that guy from Kansas State, Uzama, Felix, I can't remember how his name is pronounced. Felix Anudike Uzama, who looks to be really, really athletic, and I expect he'll test well at the combine. But Carl Brooks from Bowling Green was also another Senior Bowl standout, apparently. But I think they might go Steve Avila from TCU.
All right. Well, we're going to take Avila. Sounds good. And that's pick 51 in the books. And that brings us to
83.
Pick 83, the last pick here of your 5. There's Carl Brooks that you mentioned, who's still there. You also have corner here if you decide that you want to go that route.
Yeah,
it's in your corner wheelhouse, as you mentioned.
Yeah, that's the general round. It's not a huge need for Seattle because you've got Tariq Woolen. And then on the other side, though, you have Michael Jackson, who was all right, but he's a restricted free agent, I think. Or even if he's under contract still, he's going to be competing for a roster spot. And so is Trey Brown, the second-year player from Texas or Oklahoma, actually, who had a unfortunate injury in his first year and didn't play much this past season. Carl Brooks, I brought up as a potential Seahawks target because of his productivity at the Senior Bowl. If you could scroll down a little bit more.
Sure thing.
Get some more options in there.
Yep, you got, if you want to go with like a change of pace running back, Devin A-Chain, solid. Yeah. But, running back, like you said, not a huge need for you.
Yeah, Marvion Overshone from Texas is a popular name that shows up as being a potential Seahawk as well. Parker Washington, I loved him at Penn State. And I wanted Seattle to take Chris Godwin from Penn State several years back, but I also wanted them to take Amara Darboh, and they did, and that went horribly wrong. So, don't have to listen to me all the time.
Big Ten, right? Michigan, Penn State?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Any names sticking out here at all for you, potentially?
Nobody. Tyjae Spears, I think if they're going to take a running back, because DJ Dallas would be the immediate backup to Kenneth Walker, they might look at Tyjae Spears, but that wouldn't be a pick 83. They would likely pick in the early 4th round or trade down or do something like that. So if I play the game and pretend they're going to stay at 83 and not do any trading down, I think they might go with another edge rusher and go with Brooks, because Taylor's at the end of his contract and they do have some talent there. But the fact that he had to get some bench time tells you they're not totally committed to him. So you get Brooks and you have 2 young edge rushers in addition to already young guys in Nwosu and Taylor. And some of the more fringe guys either compete for a roster spot or it's time to go. For Seattle to take that next step, they're going to have to make some hard decisions and serious assessments about the quality of the roster and the limited upside of some of their players.
All right, that's excellent. Good assessment. We'll go ahead and take Carl Brooks.
And we'll see what the
the finishing results and the grades are here from PFF.
The worse it is, I think the better it is for Seattle.
Yeah. Well, there you go. All right, so you got an A, B, C, A+. Yeah. They really like the Avila pick.
Yeah, I can understand why the Henley pick is a C- because it figures to be a bit early to be taking a off-ball linebacker when it is not a dire position. It's a need, but it is not the absolute top need for Seattle compared to edge, interior offensive line, and wide receiver, or really anywhere else. Linebacker is kind of in the middle tier. If Geno Smith doesn't resign, then suddenly quarterback is an obvious need. But they're set at corner with 1 guy. Safety is a little dicey. I didn't bring up safety, but Brian Branch may be somebody they're interested in from Alabama. But if Jamal Adams stays healthy and they don't cut Quandre Diggs, and I don't think they will, they've got their starting safety pair. They re-sign Ryan Neal. That's their safety trio, and suddenly safety's not a need. It's just CB2 is their only question mark in the secondary. Linebacker, we see with Brooks' injury and Barton potentially not re-signing, that is a need. But in terms of positional value, I think edge, wide receiver, and interior offensive line and defensive line are the top needs for the Seahawks.
All right. It looks good here. Yeah. I want to ask our Seattle fans listening and watching the show, what do you think of these picks? Did Mookie do a good job? Is there anyone that you would rather have or replace? Let us know. Let us know in the comments. So appreciate that.
So Mookie, if this is how it turns out, like after, the first 3 rounds for you guys, how are you feeling going into, the second half of the draft?
I'm feeling pretty content. Obviously, I didn't take a quarterback, but that could all change over the next couple of weeks. You could ask me 2 weeks from now, and Geno's got a new contract, and I'd say, you know what, Seattle may still take a quarterback, but I think that they'll be fine with Geno and then taking some veteran or somebody else, or take a quarterback in the 4th or 5th round. So like Jake Haener from Fresno State or something like that. But if Geno is not a Seahawk, then guess what pick number 5 is going to be? Hello, Anthony Richardson or Will Levis or CJ Stroud or whomever. But I would be satisfied if they address the most obvious needs instead of trying to reach for positions that are not of critical importance for the team in the immediate. So they just need to they got to stockpile their talent and do it fast, because if they don't, they're going to fall right back into being kind of the team that isn't going to be making any serious playoff run. And the lack of talent from previous drafts, I'm talking 2013, 14, 15, parts of 17 and 18, that's really hurt the Seahawks in the long run. But last year was so good that it immediately put Seattle into a playoff position and a position of optimism. So if they nail this draft with all the draft capital they have and the draft capital they could acquire, if they decide, hey, we're going to package these picks, we got 5 out of the first 84, let's package these picks, get some more capital this year, maybe into next year. If they nail this draft, Seattle could be a contender again. And I think that's what the fans are hoping to see, because they've been a playoff team pretty frequently over the years. But since the Super Bowl loss to New England, they've also not really been much of a serious Super Bowl contender. It's the difference between being a playoff team where you're just making up the numbers in the field and being a playoff team that can genuinely compete for a Super Bowl.
All right. He is Mookie Alexander of Field Gulls, and you can reach him at Mookie Alexander on Twitter. And Mookie, we really appreciate you coming on and talking to us and going over this mock draft here for us. I think this is a really good spot here for Seattle. And like you said, they have that opportunity and that chance to really kind of make a difference with these picks.
Yep. It's exciting times and also an important time because the excitement could go away if this draft doesn't go and the offseason in general doesn't go as well as planned. Then things will get a little bit dicey and all the reestablished love of Pete Carroll and John Schneider could dissipate in an instant.
Yeah, definitely a crossroads draft for them.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks again so much, Mookie. We appreciate having you on. And we will see you guys next time when we discuss the Detroit Lions. Take care. Have a good night.